It is Reese here, and in today's video I want to talk about exam preparation. And I'm not talking about revision, I'm talking about sort of specific logistical things. So how you prepare in terms of making sure you know everything you need to know before you go into the room on the logistical side. So things like sort of what you should do on a general level, an exam specific level, a personal level, and then to think about the sort of mitigations you might have. So that is today's video, all that and more. So let me begin by thinking about specific details that will be of use sort of generally. So things that I would ask yourself, the exam timetable. Do you have access to the exam timetable? Does your university give you your own personalised timetable? Once you have that, if you have the general one, make sure you know all the exams you have to take. If you have a personal one, brilliant, you have that. But then make sure to look, do you know where all the rooms that you have to go to are? And if you don't, it's worth finding those well in advance so you know sort of what you have. Looking at all the times of the exams to make sure that sort of things like bus schedules or sort of arrival times are sort of catered for. If an exam is at 9:30 in the morning, you just need to plan ahead to make sure that you are in for that time window. So you can get this off the timetable, and then sort of questions about sort of what you're allowed to take with you. Are you allowed? So you'll be allowed to take stationery. You'll be allowed to take a water bottle. You'll be allowed to take some things. And each university's sort of rules on this are different. So I don't want to give a sort of a specific overview. But sort of know what you're allowed to take. Normally a drink, normally stationery. Are you required to take some form of student ID, for example? Are you required to take other things in? Just sort of having that in your head early. So you can sort of have that essentially set up nice and ready, is one way of just easing stress. Then the natural follow-on from sort of knowing the general timetable and the general things are sort of, in terms of specific exams, are there things you need to know? And often you'll be told these already, but it's always useful to have in your head to sort of know things in advance. So what's things we're talking about? The rubric. By which I mean, what are you going to be expected to do? Are you going to be expected to go in and write one or two essays? Are you going to be expected to go in and answer so many questions? Also knowing sort of what you don't have to do. So it's the case, I don't know, you're given, and you're in arts and you're given 6 essay titles and you have to choose one. Often in panic you might sort of forget that or sort of try and do more than one. Similarly with some sort of science papers here where we sit, sort of the tendency to try and do every question even when you don't need to. So knowing in your head sort of exactly what it is you're going to need to do. And this is something that you'll have been thinking about anyway, because it kind of filters into questions of revision and preparation. So there's that. There's also knowing what resources you have to hand. So are you going to be given things like equation sheets or a periodic table or sort of access to a text? It might the whole exam be open book. Are you allowed to take in books for specific assessments? Again, knowing that in your head and making sure you have these things if you're allowed to have them, or knowing that they will be there if you're allowed to have them and they will be provided. So having, sort of knowing this again, sort of it eases stress to think, oh, you're panicking maybe about needing to remember a particular equation or a particular quote, but if you know that it will be on the desk there already when you arrive, then that is one sort of ounce of stress less that you need to think about. And in terms of specific things to sort of break down, this is not something that's going to apply to everyone. It might be the case that as a result of a physical or mental disability, as a result of some sort of pre-existing agreement with your department or with your exams office, you will have some sort of mitigation, some sort of special requirements or adjustments for the assessment. That might be being in a particular room, it might be having access to a laptop, it might be sort of extra time or having different coloured paper. Whatever it is, these are questions to ask yourself if this is you, and you should know this is you, but do you have these adjustments, and what form will these adjustments take? Right, and so again, this will likely have been agreed in conversation with you anyway, so sort of you're not going to be sort of surprised when you rock up and find certain accommodations have been made. And sort of knowing how they might affect arrangements. So are you going to be in a different room from sort of the main room? If you have extra time, what time will your assessment finish, or what time could it finish, because it will be later than the sort of the usual conventional time. So having those things in your head as well. If this is you, if you're a student who sort of has these mitigations, knowing in advance how they factor into the exams as well. And I would say, as is kind of often the case, that sort of those communications will probably happen anyway. You will probably be given that information, but just making sure you have it to hand, just in case. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the sort of logistical non-content stuff is kind of the personal dimension of this. So although sort of knowing what room to go to and all that is very important, definitely, it can be easy, and I know sort of there have been friends in the past who've had this, and where during exam time they sort of panic and eat more or less than they should, sort of don't sleep as they should. So essentially just making sure that you are taking care of yourself, that you're sort of having kind of what is your normal routine, and making sure that you look after yourself in a period that is sort of, quite a stressful one. There are ways to do this, and sort of what I would say is sort of, if these are things where you sort of draw on support networks you have, be that friends, be that family, and be that support at your university. But it's kind of, there can be a risk that sort of with the worry of exams, this kind of personal thing of making sure you look after yourself, making sure you eat all the food you need to eat and drink and get all your rest, can somewhat go out of the window. Not intentionally, but because your mind is sort of, understandably elsewhere. So I would throw this as well as sort of one last logistical thing, is make sure you've got everything figured out in terms of what you need to do. I'll talk about a revision content thing next week that will hopefully be helpful, but then also make sure you're taking care of yourself and getting all the rest and relaxation and sustenance that you need as well. So here we go, my video on exam prep and the sort of logistics of it. So as I've sort of hinted throughout this video, the video next week will be on sort of revising content, how you can sort of set yourself up well and sort of hopefully sort of prepare without needing to overwhelm yourself with sort of all the content you've been given throughout your year or throughout your module. So hopefully this has been of use, and sort of please do comment below and share your tips and advice if you have some as well, because it's incredibly useful. I know exam periods are going to be approaching now for a lot of students, and if you have any ideas or thoughts that might be useful, people will be very gratefully received. Thank you so much for watching this one. Hopefully it's been useful, and if there are other things you want me to talk about, comment below, let me know. Otherwise, make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when there's a new video. Thank you very, very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.